This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK. This is the BBC.
Hello, I know that you're expecting the Comedy of the Week podcast, and that's just about to play. My name's Josie Long, and I present Shortcuts, which is also made by the BBC and available as a podcast. We would love it if you gave us a try. Short documentaries for radio on a theme. It's like a longer documentary, but better, more time efficient. If that sounds like something you're interested in, please subscribe to Shortcuts, however you normally get your podcasts, and give the show a go.
Hello, this is Comedy of the Week, and I'm Sindhu V. Make a cup of tea, or chai, but never chai latte. I mean, how is that even a thing? Anyway, grab your hot beverage and relax. Here is today's comedy. Enjoy. Hello, I'm Sindhu V, and this is a radio show about the world I inhabit, which I call Sindhustan. Stan means world, Sindhu is me, so Sindhustan. My world needs its own name because I'm not really sure where I belong. My parents are from different cultures within India. That's where I was born and raised, and yes, it is perfectly possible to be racially, linguistically, food-wise, clothes-wise, just in every way-wise, completely different and still be an Indian. And that's what my parents are. My husband isn't Indian at all. I don't mean that in some mysterious, metaphoric way. No, he is actually not an Indian. Full stop. I grew up partially on an island in the Pacific Ocean. My accent is quite American sometimes. I have no control over this, just FYI. My kids are born and raised in London, and so they are fully English, mate, and our Labrador is from Wales. And this mishmash world is Sindhustan, the only place I feel fully at home. In this episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and the other inhabitants of Sindhustan. Think of it as a TripAdvisor for my daily life.
Sindhustan.
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 Back to my daily life. We have 3 generations living under the same roof, our roof, aging grandparents, my husband and I, and young children, 24/7. My parents don't technically live with us. They just visit often, always making sure to include Diwali, Christmas, Easter, the start of the summer holidays, and Halloween in their stay, so it feels like they live with us permanently. At least this is how my husband describes it. Now, there's a lot of love in this setup. I love my parents, I love my kids, most of the time I love my husband. He loves the children. He, by and large, exhibits relatively non-negative feelings about my parents. And he loves me. I know, because he always says sweet things like, well, given they raised you, I really can't complain. And when they're visiting, he often says to me, whatever you want, darling, I am very tired. And my parents love us all, though my mother does from time to time say she especially loves my husband because, well, he married you, so he is my hero. And of course, the most loved in are the grandparents and the children. Absolutely legendary levels of affection between them. And you know, when I see my parents letting them eat their body weight in ice cream, telling them they don't have to bother with homework, I think, who are these people? And where were they when I was growing up? But on those occasions, my mother always sets me straight because she says, well, they are a lovely and good children. You are different. Anyway, all this love is heartwarming and I'm grateful for it, but 3 generations under one roof is very stressful. Because my husband and I, we are now the middle generation. You know, kids on one side, aging parents on the other, and both these groups need us. They lean on us. So my husband and I are in the center, sort of holding everything together, like the filling in a sandwich. But not a sandwich from a place like Eat or Pret, no, where you can see what the filling is. Golden grilled chicken, plump tomatoes, whoa, look at that lettuce. Oh, I can see the greens and the mustard, ooh, no. We are like the sandwich from a petrol station. Have you seen those where you look at it and you think, what's in this? It says chicken, but is that cheese? And then you try and smell it through the plastic. You're like, oh, what is that? You know? And you think, what happened to this filling? I'll tell you what happened. It grew up and had to take responsibility for its past and its future. Anyway, my husband and I, we are the filling in that sandwich. So let's leave the two enemy camps, grandparents and the children, aside for the moment and talk about my husband and me. I'm Indian. My husband is Danish. Sounds exotic. Turns out it's also quite exhausting. Because Danes and Indians have a very different idea of what is an appropriate emotional response to life in general. Okay? Think of a spectrum. On one end, you have a Danish man. On the furthest possible other end, you have an Indian woman. Okay? This end, Danish end, is hyper-rational. The Indian end, at best, is irrational. Okay, I'll never forget hyper-rational. For one time, my husband said to me, it would be terrible if we got divorced, but it would be worse if we both got terminal cancer. Look at the bright side. To which I immediately responded, if you divorce me, I'll get terminal cancer, it will be your fault, and I'll make sure the kids found out you murdered me. The Danish end is stoic. When we met, my husband said to me, I've never seen my mother cry. The Indian end is tears are us. When he said this to me, I was like, oh, I'm so sorry your mother died in childbirth. Because how else is it humanly possible that you would not have seen your mother cry? Mine cries twice a day minimum. Once because she loves me unconditionally, and the other time because I failed her in some way. On the Danish end, their most important celebration, Jul, Christmas, signified especially by the word hygge, which translates as a quiet coziness. On the Indian side, for me at least, as a Hindu, single biggest festival, Diwali. The word most associated with Diwali is dhamaka, which translates as noisy explosion. It is also the word used to describe terrorist attacks. Very different cultures. But here we are, 20 years into our cross-cultural, if Spock from Star Trek had married Jack Nicholson from The Shining, kind of marriage. Which actually then brings me to my kids. I love my kids. In fact, the way we love our kids is pretty irrational. Who here has children? You never thought you could love something that much, am I right? It's irrational. And it's irrational because so often your kids are not lovable at all. But you wake up every day like, yep, let's go, you know? And I'll talk more about my kids later in the series. But for now, I just want to touch on one thing that's stressing me a lot about my elder two, is that sex is starting to come up in the conversation. You know, and I mean, and by the way, to make it worse, my mother has jumped on this bandwagon. And I'm just not ready for this, okay? For one thing, my husband and I have been married 20 years. So we are not even talking about sex, you know? Because why bring up the past? Why bring up what is officially over? But more than that, I was raised in India. We have no sex education. No one talks about sex. I mean, not at all. In India, when it comes to sex, there is no theory. You just show up one day for a practical and wing it. That's it. That is it. And I just want to point out, we're innately so talented, there's a billion of us. We don't need the paperwork. We are quite literally on it. I was sitting with my son, and my daughter walked in. By the way, my kids are 12 and 14. It's not like they're 2 and 4 and always talking about sex, because then why am I telling this story in public? Anyway, so sitting with my son, my 12-year-old daughter walked in, and she said, Mama, I fell over in school and I hurt my leg. I think it's my bone. And my son said, She said, my bone. He said, And I said, why when she says bone? Oh my God. I said, dude, are you saying boner? He said, yo, bruv. You can't say that word to me, you're my mom. Hashtag monster ox, yo. Hashtag. The child thinks if he doesn't say hashtag before a word, I can't hear it. And second of all, anyone know what monster ox means? No? Monster awkward. Very awkward. Yeah? This is from a boy who is failing creative writing in school. And I don't think it helps that the kids are taught sex ed in school. You see, I think this is part of the problem. My daughter came home from school when she was 12 and said, I'm very angry with you, Mom. You never told me I had a hole. And I thought, oh my God, what is happening? And I said, well, I'm sorry. She said, I was so embarrassed in class. Why didn't you say anything to me? Why didn't it come up? When does that come up? Finish your dinner, eat your broccoli. By the way, there's a hole between your legs. When does that come up? So I said, look, I'm really sorry. She said, okay, fine. But we have 3. And the thing is, and I said, whoa. 3? No, we have 2. She said, no, we have 3. And I'm like, we have 2. She said, the nurse told me it's 3. I said, is the nurse white? Of course she's white. Look, white ladies may have 3. We're Indians, we have 2. That's it. And then she said, no, but we have to ask Google. Google, you know this talking Google is a disaster. When it first came out, the ad was always some kid asking for a cupcake recipe or why are dodos extinct. That's not what children are asking Google. Anyway, it turns out we have 3. I had no idea. In my defense, the 1 Venezuelan and 2 Pakistani mothers in our class also didn't know. So there is some weird north-south divide on this, okay? Here's the thing. When you have kids, you have to sort of be ready for anything, right? You expect that the adults in the family will have some idea of what they're talking about or what is appropriate. But that's because you don't live with my mom. You know, she came to me the other day and said, listen, how is your life in the bedroom these days? You know, the bedroom life. You know, bedroom life. She thinks if she switches the word bedroom and life enough times in that sentence, I'm going to get confused and tell her. Because, you know, I'm reading one research that modern day living has become so stressful. I saw in the magazine, so stressful that men don't have a Labrador, their wife is frustrated in the bedroom. Can you believe it? And I was like, what, men don't have a Labrador? So their wife, Mummy, what magazine are you reading? She said, no, that Labrador, you know. I said, Ma, it's libido. She said, oh, acha, but you understood, no. You know, in Western world, women are so liberated, they have solved the problem. Shall I tell you how? I was like, nope. She said, I'm your mother, it's my duty, just listen. 50% of such frustrated ladies have become the lesbian. And 50% have decided to go into bedroom and become cranky. And I said, become what? She said, cranky. You know the cranky sex? I said, Ma, it's kinky. Oh, but you understood, no. But it is only the remaining ladies that are still frustrated, huh? I said, wait, 50% are lesbian, 50% are cranky, the remaining are frustrated? Correct. So I said to my mom, you know what, Mom, you always give me such good advice. I'm going to decide by the end of today, am I going to become a lesbian? Or am I going to start having cranky sex? Just do me one favor, please. Stop doing math homework with the children. So, yes, being responsible for 2 generations about 70 years apart is stressful at every conceivable level. But it's all about love. And who doesn't want love, right? No. The really special silver lining is, of course, the special love that our living situation has forged between my husband and me. It's the kind of special love between 2 people that is forged when they're on a beach holiday and a tsunami arrives. You start holding on to each other for survival. So I guess you could say we're the filling in a tsunami of love sandwich.
Sindhustan is written and performed by Sindhu V. The script editor is Robin Morgan. The producer is Victoria Lloyd. This is a BBC Studios production.
Thank you so much for listening to Comedy of the Week. The clue's in the title. There will be more delicious comedy from BBC Radio 4 waiting in your favorite podcast app next week. So I will see you then.
Hi, this is Lauren Laverne. I've taken control of your podcast airwaves for a moment to let you know about Late Night Women's Hour, my podcast for Radio 4. Every week, I talk to brilliant, interesting, funny women about life, politics, friendship, love, instinct, feminism, hair, snacks, money, and, well, everything really. You know when you talk to your good mates and the world seems to make sense again afterwards? That's what we try to do every single week on Late Night Women's Hour, and we'd love you to join in. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.